Okay, this video is the first video of probably three or four that's going to explore sentence complexity. And this is essentially the grammar expectations for the class. Um, you are supposed to be able to already write complete sentences and essentially have basic control of the English language. Unfortunately, high school stops here and college starts here. So this gap we got to address. And I've designed um, six rules that if you know intimately, that if you can use inside and out, you will avoid about 80 to 85% of the common mistakes that people make. Um, in a kind of crude way, the way I explain this is you will avoid being the office turd ball. If you work in a professional setting of any kind, everybody knows who can't write a complete sentence in the office, and their emails get mocked, and their careers are really limited because they can't craft coherent language, or they consistently make grammatical errors that people notice. And if you can control these six rules that I'm going to teach you, which are really actually all about the comma, if you could control the comma, if you know all the ways it's used or not supposed to be used, you in general will not look like the office turd ball. As a ELA instructor, as a writing teacher, I'm constantly asked to read other people's work. Um, Fellow teachers who are going through graduate school or going through advanced programs ask me to read their work. Teachers running for the school board ask me to read his responses to newspapers. Um, a teacher working through some kind of legal crisis asked me to read their responses. It's constant. I mean, if you were a mechanic, your friends ask you to work on their car. My friends ask me to look at their writing. When I look at their writing, I am primarily applying just these six rules. They're just constantly running in my head. They're a mantra that I always walk around with. Um, if you could get to that point with just six rules, it's just six rules. If you can get there with six rules, you're going to be a much better writer in terms of your grammatical correctness, your mechanical correctness than you were beforehand. And I'm just going to cover some of the introductory parts of this in this video. So here are the six rules. The acronym is CNFAIL. It does not stand for you can fail. Okay, it's just the way the acronym got put together by some students who helped me kind of categorize and collect these rules as I was teaching. So CNFAIL stands for conjunctive adverb, non-essentials, fanboys, adjectives, introductory phrases, and lists. These are ways in which the comma is used in the English language. And if you learn these hard and fast and only use a comma when you're following one of these rules, you're going to be a lot more successful in terms of the grammatical correctness of your work. And you're also going to get a chance to demonstrate some stylistic expressions. You're going to get to demonstrate some stylistic strategies, some elements of style that will make you look like a more sophisticated writer. Okay, if you do some of these things, they're not done by the average high school writer, and you will therefore not look like the average high school writer. The essential rule is fanboys. You've probably heard this before. Fanboys stands for the coordinating conjunctions. And the rule that you got to really remember is fanboys connect two complete thoughts with a comma. Okay? You got to memorize that somehow. You have to somehow memorize fanboys connect, join, bring together two complete thoughts with a comma. Now, some of you might be saying, well, what's a complete thought? Now, that's been taught in a wide variety of ways. My third grade daughter is learning it right now in the very traditional way of subject and predicate. Okay, every sentence has got a subject, every sentence has got a predicate. If that was taught to you in third grade and you still don't have it, I'm not going to keep teaching it the same way. I have a simple trick that actually English teachers don't like because they want you to learn the subject, predicate, and how to diagram sentences and things like that. I have a simple trick. A complete thought can be determined with the following phrase: it is true that. You got to memorize that. It is true that. And for the trick to work, you have to say it exactly like that. It is true that. A complete thought is a complete thought if you could put it is true that in front of it and it still makes sense. So if the phrase makes sense added to the beginning of the text in question, it is a complete thought. So determining if something is a complete thought or not is at the heart of the fanboys rule, and it's at the heart of the expectations grammatically in this class. You must be able to, by your writing, demonstrate you know what complete thoughts are. I love writing. Is I love writing a complete thought? It's just 3 words. Is it a complete thought? Is it a complete sentence? I love writing. It is true that I love writing. Okay, there it is. There's that it is true that phrase. It makes sense. So therefore, we could say it is true that. Writing about my family and our troubles with alcoholism. Is that a complete thought? It's a lot longer. Writing about my family and our troubles with alcoholism. Well, let's put the it is true that in front of it. It is true that writing about my family and our troubles with alcoholism. No, it's not a complete thought. Writing about my family and our troubles with alcoholism does not make sense. To make it complete, I would have to add a verb. It is true that writing about my family and our troubles with alcoholism is hard. Is the to be verb, that's the predicate, that makes it a complete thought. If you make mistakes with fanboys, with commas, you are telling a college level reader you don't know what complete thoughts are. And that's a big problem. You cannot pass this class if you don't know what complete thoughts are. If you don't have a good control of that using the subject predicate things that have been taught to you since 3rd grade, you need to memorize this rule. And this rule is how I evaluate all work that anyone ever brings to me. I'm constantly saying in my mind, it is true that, it is true that, it is true that. Because that phrase put in front of another phrase, if it makes sense, now I know that's a complete thought. Let's look at some examples. So fanboys connect 2 complete thoughts with a comma. I love writing. I hate math. Okay, I love writing. Is that a complete thought? Yes, it is true that I love writing. I hate math. That's a complete thought. A period can come in between them. But I just told you fanboys connect 2 complete thoughts with a comma. So anywhere I could put a period, I could put a comma and one of the fanboys. So the fanboys are for and nor, but, or, yet, and so. For and nor, but, or, yet, and so. You got to memorize that. Okay? The fanboys stand for and nor, but, or, yet, and so. When I was in high school, my high school English teacher made me memorize it to a song, which makes sense. You guys got tons of songs memorized, right? I don't know, but I've been told. For and nor, but, or, yet, so. I had to march around the classroom doing that. For and nor, but, or, yet, so. For and nor, but, or, yet, so. The reason why I had to march around the classroom memorizing that is these 7 words are the only words that can come in between a complete thought, 2 complete thoughts that can come between 2 complete thoughts with a comma. That's it. There's no other word that can go here. And if you use any other word, your college reader doesn't think you know what complete thoughts are. Now, if you don't have the comma here, let's say you take that comma out. If you take that comma out, you don't know what complete thoughts are. If you take out the but, if you just have a comma, you don't know what complete thoughts are. Get serious, folks. You are not going to make it through college if you don't know what a complete thought is. The other thing that can come in between complete thoughts is the semicolon. But that is it. There are only 3 things that can come in between complete thoughts. 1, 2, 3. A period. A comma with a fanboy. and a semicolon. That's it. They're the only three things that can come in between complete thoughts. So let's think about this sentence. I love writing and literature. Oh, I see an and right here. I see an and. And is a fanboy. Do I put a comma here? I love writing and literature. Do I put a comma there? Now, the way to figure out if a comma goes there or not is I got to figure out, is there a complete thought on both sides of it? Okay. So I love writing. Is that a complete thought? It is true that I love writing. Yep. That's a complete thought. Literature. Is that a complete thought? It is true that literature. No, it is not a complete thought. This and is not acting as a fanboy. If you put a comma there, you are telling your college level reader that you don't know what complete thoughts are. Now, in this next sentence, tell me where the comma goes. I love the snow in winter and the empty silence of January nights. In a face-to-face class, I always get people, and a lot of times it's a lot of people that say a comma goes right there because there's a pause, right? Somewhere in your life, you've heard put commas where there's a pause. That's the worst rule I've ever heard taught because it's 100% wrong. You do not put commas where there's a pause. There's a pause here. I love writing. I hate math. There's a pause. A period goes there. There's a pause here. I love writing. I hate math. There is a pause here. I said it with a pause. I love the snow in winter and the empty silence of January nights. However, there is no comma there. I love the snow in winter. Is that a complete thought? It is true that I love the snow in winter. Yeah, that's a complete thought. The empty silence of January nights. It is true that the empty silence of January nights. That doesn't make any sense. That's not a complete thought. There is no comma here. And if you put one there, you're telling me you don't know what complete sentences are. You have to get this right. It's the basic rule. It's a rule you should already know. And unfortunately, a whole bunch of my first year composition students don't. We could blame the educational system. We could blame teachers. We can blame whatever you want to blame. It doesn't matter. If you can't control this, you're not going to be successful at the college level. And you can. This isn't complex. It is true that. For and nor, but or yet so. Fanboys connect two complete thoughts. I used to say to my high school students, what's the color of the grass in the summer? Green. Your ability to know that is the same level of knowledge as being able to say fanboys connect two complete thoughts. A complete thought can be determined by the phrase, it is true that. The fanboys are for and nor, but or yet so. Come on. You're in college. Okay. I have to stop. If I keep going in this presentation, I get more and more worked up, so I break it into little chunks. When you write, you have to use complete thoughts. And in between complete thoughts, you can use a period, a comma and a fanboy, or a semicolon. That's it. You want to use periods and fanboys and semicolons. You don't want to write just period to period to period to period. At times, you want to control the relationship in between the sentences by saying and or but or yet. At times, you want a semicolon, which just implies there's a close relationship between those two thoughts. Sometimes cause and effect, but sometimes not. You just want to say these two things are really related to each other. At the very basic level, you want to use periods, commas, and fanboys and semicolons so that the professor reading your work knows you know how to use them. So it is true that helps you determine if a sentence is complete or not. And you need to know that because in between complete sentences, you can put periods, commas and fan points, and semicolons. Make it happen.